Okay, I think oh, my thing went away entirely.
Oh, mine says
Oh,
live on Facebook.
okay, here we go. Well, hey, everybody, this is Val Vandervoort of Veritas Homes, and I'm super excited because I've thought for a while about doing interviews with agents from areas where Bay Area residents are going. And my first guest is Jason Boone, which makes complete sense because he and I are buddies from our alma mater of the University of Puget Sound up in Tacoma, Washington, where he and I met many years ago now.
Let's not
Just
calculate that.
before we head into kind of what the market's like, how long have you been practicing up there?
Let's see. I started as an unlicensed assistant in the fall of 2005 and got my license in 2006.
Okay.
And then the economy hit the fan. And
Okay.
that's what happened. So,
Okay. And then you
very
decided
character
it
building.
would be a great time to get further into real estate.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been a good go. Yeah.
I've been very fortunate, in hindsight, coming into the industry when it was getting very difficult, was very character building, and it gave me a really good foundation of experience and how to work hard versus just stick a sign on the ground and bank on it selling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel very fortunate. We put in a lot of time and energy and worked very hard to get to the point that we're at now. And um, I can look back and say I wouldn't have it any other way. At the time, it was difficult.
So tell us what the Bend real estate market has been like over the past few years.
The bottom of our economy was about fourth quarter of 2011.
Okay.
And, our leading up to that, our real estate economy was a lot of speculation, which I distinctly use that word differently than investors. We had a lot of folks, buying several rentals, leveraging their equity in one rental to then put a down payment on another, and really, and a lot of people within the real estate and development industry were doing that. So when their cash flow got affected by that, totally in accord with the book, The Big Short, and or the movie,
Yes.
it all kind of fell to pieces. And we had really high inventory and low sales and lots of foreclosures. And that finally reached the bottom, like I said, in 2011. And it didn't really take long. I mean, certainly by beginning of 2013, 2012 was a decent year. 2013, the light switch was fully turned back on and things started to get really busy and inventory started to drop. We started to get a few more new construction starts. So I would say for the last 8 years, it's certainly been a seller's market. To put it in perspective, we had almost 2.5 to 3 years of inventory in 2008.
Okay.
And by 2012, we were down to about 5-6 months.
Okay.
And by about 2014 through the beginning of 2020, we were hovering right around 3 or 4 months of inventory.
And now today you shared, where are you at today?
It's 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks,
which actually is even, I would say, less supply of inventory than we have. So we have 25 single family houses on the market right now. Our town is about 30,000. What's the population of Bend?
We're right at about 100,000 now.
Okay.
And since maybe 2012, 13, through 2019, we were averaging about 450 to 500 homes on the market. As of last night, when I put together a couple of stats for today's event, there was 144 available single family homes.
Okay.
Which is 90% less than 2008 and, about 25% less or 75% less than what we've had for the last couple of years.
Okay.
So.
Doesn't seem like too bad. Like I think of, if we combine, I think Redwood City, our city to the south, and San Carlos, we're hitting right around the 100,000 mark, I think, on population. And I think if we combine those, we'd be right around 100. So you're a little bit higher than us, I guess, as far as that population size goes.
Yeah.
So what's it been like? What was it like when you immediately went? into a shelter in place mode. And then what has it been like, say 2 months after that happened?
Yeah, it actually didn't really even take that long. I mean, middle of March, and the governor kind of started shutting down the state, and California was shutting down, and Washington as well. It was kind of this feeling of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Is this going to be similar to 2008 in some regard? And I didn't think it would be nearly, of that magnitude. But it was still a lot of uncertainty. And it really, we saw about a 50% reduction on our pending sales and about a 50% reduction in closed sales for about 45 days, and about May turned around and all of a sudden things really started hopping again. People were coming back out and, willing to look at houses. And June and July were record setting months in terms of the number of pending homes and closed homes by quite a long shot. I think, trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think it was 319 pending homes in it was either June or July, which would be a good 25 to 30% greater than we've seen in the last 10 years in a single month.
Wow. Are you seeing visitors like, it's interesting because it's an odd time to travel, but yet it's also a time in which people are exploring what could be different in their life as far as where they live. And so are you guys seeing an uptick in visitors from outside the area who are exploring Bend?
Absolutely. There was a period in time when, both neighboring states and, areas in Portland and Salem were still in many ways shut down. Restaurants weren't open, exclusively takeout, but Deschutes County was able to actually go into phase one reopening, and we were able to open up pubs and restaurants and that sort of thing. So we not only got people, and we're within driving distance of certainly Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and that sort of thing. So people can avoid getting on an airplane and breathing that recycled air. But we got a lot of visitors that, wanted to escape quarantine and come to Bend, which has, all the natural recreation that drive a lot of people to relocate here, and also have the benefit that they could get a hotel room, and there were some services that were available to them. I can't say that it made a lot of the locals very happy on social media, but it is what it is. And it's interesting because there's not a lot of industry in Bend, and so there's not a lot of job opportunity. In fact, one of my anecdotes is that roughly 10 some odd years ago, I went out to the pub with all of the dads from my Girl Scouts, or my daughter's Girl Scout troop. And, out of like 10 guys or something like that, I was the only one that actually worked for a company based in Bend. All the rest of them telecommuted.
Okay.
That was a decade ago.
Yeah.
And that trajectory has massively increased.
Yeah.
And that's fueled some in-migration to our area. But then you throw in the element of distance learning for the children. And now all of a sudden this component that, was a major factor in someone's relocation, like, oh, we're going to wait until they're done with middle school, or school is out for the year, or et cetera. But these kids are learning from home as it is. And I think I know that there's been several people from LA and SF that have just said, hey, I can work from home. I'm going to be working from home for a long time. My kids are taking school from home. Let's go ahead and relocate now.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you seeing those as purchases or like longer term rentals of even stuff like Airbnb?
Lots of purchases, certainly. Okay. There certainly have been some long-term Airbnb type rentals that have gotten snatched up by people that are just like, well, if I'm working from home, I could either be in a larger metropolitan area, or I could work from home in a rental in beautiful Bend, Oregon. So certainly a lot of that going on too.
Okay. Let's see here. So so you said LA, San Francisco, where else are you seeing buyers come in from?
Certainly our largest, most significant demographics tend to come from the West Coast, and certainly a lot of them from California. San Diego County, LA County, San Francisco area, Portland and Seattle. And then from there, probably the next biggest one might be actually Texas, which is
Okay.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just kind of, fizzles out into something that I don't really have a metric on, but we certainly get people from Connecticut and New York and, the Midwest and even, the Southeast and all over. But predominantly it is West Coast, with foremost being San Francisco and South.
Yeah, it's interesting the number of people who we hear talk about it down here. Whether they can make it happen now or it's a dream they have going forward. There's certainly, and has been for, I would say, 5, 6, 7 years, about people like Bend really becoming on people's radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got an amazing landscape here with desert and mountains, and a fun, active community, and a size of a town in which it lacks a little bit of an anonymity, which I genuinely believe curtails some behavior. We you don't get the single finger salute at an
Yes.
intersection or a lot of
Right.
honking, because chances are you might run into that same person at Safeway. And
Yeah.
I think that curtails some behavior and also enhances a sense of community.
Yeah.
And with our driving distance, certainly to a lot of those areas, as well as we now have direct flights from our local airport to Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Denver and Salt Lake. It's not just 10 years ago it would have been, you got to fly to Seattle and you got to fly to Portland in order to get pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's really expanded as well, and that helps. There are people that can spend 3 to 5 days a week in Bend and commute a couple days back down to San Francisco for some meetings. I have a good friend of mine that works for the Gates Foundation, and
Okay.
not lately, but they would commute to Seattle once a month and commute to Geneva on a different day of the month, and the rest of the time they're in Bend.
Yeah. That sounds like a good life.
Yeah, not
Fun,
too
fun
bad.
work, fun life. So you kind of talked about a little bit that I'm sure there's people who are upset about kind of the feeling that their small community is changing, as more and more outsiders come in. And, obviously people are selling their houses. So where are people leaving Bend to go to?
Uh, I don't have as really of a strong of any sort of metric on that. It's more of an emotional, response, and limited to some of my experiences. But some people end up needing to, move back to the city for employment needs, and a lot of that tends to be Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Or Seattle. Some of it tends to be, family related. And I've had some folks that have moved back to California to be close to some, extended family that may need some care.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the rest of them that are maybe, still capable of living a more, rural, sort of lifestyle are, often moving to Eastern Oregon or Idaho or Montana, and seeking some refuge in a smaller town there.
Yeah.
And I think that the sentiment of locals, with relocation, is exacerbated by COVID right now, and everyone's really sensitive about infection and spread of disease. And so, we have, on one hand, we have, visitors coming here temporarily because we did have some, amenities open.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, I think, somewhat getting lumped into those that might be relocating here.
Okay.
And so, if you take out that pandemic element and that, unease relative to, spread of infectious disease, we're just really focusing in on residents and growth and in migration and that sort of thing. And there is certainly an old guard to Bend that, I've been here 17 years, and there's folks that, want it to be like it was 30 years ago when it was, a logging town, and bar fights in the streets and, more rural and cowboy than it is now. And it's just not going to happen. I mean, that doesn't happen anywhere. There's growth throughout. I grew up in Manhattan Beach when Manhattan Beach wasn't affordable. And, now it's all predominantly multi-million dollar houses. They're, very unapproachable. And a lot of Hollywood has invaded Manhattan Beach, and it's a completely different place now.
Yeah.
So nothing's forever. It changes.
Yeah, that's for sure, right? Yeah. Where do you see, so it's obviously a hot market for sellers. And so where do you see opportunities for buyers?
I still think that there are opportunities to make deliberate, intelligent decisions and investments for personal residences. I think it's difficult based on where values have gone for investors and cash flow components.
Okay.
But I think that there are someone that has the support of a experienced realtor and someone that knows the local area, and for all that they know today, because circumstances change beyond our control, and not always what we signed up for is what we get. But I think you can make calculated, deliberate, well-intentioned decisions that set you up for success. The challenge is the decision-making process and that investigative research. And by the time that you are ready to execute, you need to know what you want. And there are over the years, since it is such a community that draws a lot of people that want to live here, there's very few corporate, military or otherwise transfers to Bend. I was forced to move to Bend
Right.
for
That's
my
a
job.
great point.
We
Yeah.
don't have that.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with a number of people over the years that, they visit, they fall in love. They're like, oh yeah, let's check out real estate. We want to move here. Some of those people may not have taken the time to fully evaluate what it is that they want, and maybe they want to pursue something. And in today's competitive market, if you want to make that deliberate, intelligent decision that sets you up for success, you need to build that data of information of what it is I really want. I don't want to make potentially a rash decision, and even though it might be profitable for my realtor, it's not going to set me up for success if in a year and a half I'm going, I don't want to live here, I want to move over here.
Yeah.
And then when you have that information, you can really make that commitment. You need to be ready to go. You need to be fully qualified. If you've got cash resources, fantastic. If you've got that preliminary, we call them love letters or personal letter to the seller ready to go, and then the challenge becomes, where is that person located when they identify that house that they want to pursue? Are they still down in SF and this new listing came up and they can't get up there to check it out for a week?
Yeah.
They might lose out. It's just that competitive right now. And so and I am seeing people come more prepared to buy. I've had several clients, they're like, my house is in escrow in California, and I've got my pre-approval letter, or I've got my cash, I know what I want, let's check it out. Then people are making buying trips versus exploration trips.
Okay.
And that's where someone can take advantage of the opportunity. Interestingly, we're still really only at 22% of cash transactions on single family residential, which
That's
is
pretty
really
high though, still.
It's high. It's very large, but it would feel emotionally, just based on seeing the number of cash transactions, to think that it's much higher than that. And in fact, it's actually very consistent with 2019, which was closer to 23%. So, any sort of standard error there is essentially the same. But we're seeing, that's not just a $500,000 or $750,000 cash transaction. I'm seeing, 2 million, 3 million, as well as $400,000, whatever it spans the gamut. But it doesn't have to be cash to win, that's for sure. It certainly helps, but being prepared, knowing what you want. We have some nuances with Oregon land use laws, which date back about 45, 47 years now.
Okay.
And so, I've certainly had a lot of people over the years that, they're like, okay, well, I want to be within 30 minutes of Bend. I want an acre or two. And I want a house that's no older than 20 years with an open layout and solid surface countertops. Well, 30 minutes of, some location in the Bay Area is a very different, paradigm than within 30 minutes of Bend. I mean, 30 minutes within Bend, I mean, you are way out in the desert.
Right.
You are way far away.
Yeah.
Granted, it maybe only be 30 minutes and there's no traffic and whatever.
Yeah.
But those same principles don't apply. And
It's many
so,
miles.
it's that education process to see, what it is based on what Bend is, based on how Oregon has evolved within their towns, based on their land use laws, effectively what we have on the shelves to sell you. And it doesn't always fit within someone's, notion before they know as to what they want. A 2-acre parcel outside of town for $750,000, with an open layout doesn't exist.
Okay.
And it's funny how many times I get that, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
I
we
bet.
don't have that, but this
Yeah.
is what we do have.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
God. So that's just one of those things, right? That you need to you need to be in conversation with a professional in the area that you're thinking of going to, because you think that that's what you're going to be able to get your hands on, and to learn that, okay, no, that doesn't happen, but this is what we do have, right?
right,
So
right.
this has been a fantastic conversation. It's so good to see you. We haven't seen each other in person for over 20 years now, I think,
Yeah,
or right
no
about
doubt.
that. So I got your newsletter this morning. I really enjoyed looking through it, and I love the listing on, I think it's Sample Road, or
Oh, Sample Court. Yeah, it's a beautiful
yeah,
home. Yeah.
yeah, it gave me some design ideas. It was fun to look at. So how can people get a hold of you and get on your newsletter? You are obviously a super thoughtful, data-driven person. And we have a lot of those types in the Bay Area. So I know that having the kind of information that you share would be valuable to them. So how do they get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest would be either via our website or directly emailing me.
Okay.
And we have 2 websites. We have the team website, which is Skjersaagroup.com. And obviously that's difficult to spell.
Yeah, it's in our description.
Yeah. And, we have benpropertysearch.com, and either reaching out directly or through the website is a great way to get a hold of us, and also subscribe to our newsletter.
Okay. I will put in the comments, I will put your website information in there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Well,
so good to see you. Have a
Yep.
wonderful weekend, and we'll have to have you back again sometime in the future and talk about what's continuing to happen in your market.
Right on. I look forward to it. This was fun. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Be well.